And happy Sunday morning on this beautiful June morning. That was redundant. Sorry about that. But anyways, welcome to Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition. I know where I am. It's a beautiful 78 degrees this morning.
You're
Chase,
just
I know
trying
it's
to.
70 degrees there, and I'm just saying this to rub this into Kevin, who's
That's
going to hit
right.
a high
You know
of
that.
104 today. Is that what you said?
That's what it is. 104, and I think like the low temperature is like 88 or something like. It's just gross.
That's a hell of a low. But look, when you hit 104 and you drop down to 88, that 88 is going to feel beautiful. I don't know about you, but that's how I feel. Anyways, this is another Dynasty Edition Sunday morning here. So thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about some recent news on some teams around the league. Maybe get into a little bit of trade value talk with some of these guys specifically that we're going to talk about. But first of all, I mean, we already get a sense of how Kevin's doing. But how are you doing this morning, Kevin?
Oh, we're indoors, so we're good here, and it's Sunday morning, and life is, as long as you're not outside and don't have to work outside, which of course I don't. So life is good here.
Fantastic. And Chase, how are you? I know you said you just finished up one of your side hobbies, one of your plays last night. How'd that go for you?
It went really well. We were thrilled with it. I got a ton of compliments on it. I directed this one and acted in it, and I was getting a ton of compliments on it. People saying they thought it was the best one we've done yet, which was always nice to hear because, whether it's true or not, you don't have to say that. So, and then I got a lot of personal compliments and comments on my acting work, which was nice and always is fun to hear. That's what I went to college for. So let's hope I'm halfway decent at it. But I'm glad it's done. I'm glad I'm be able to get back to doing some more writing and seeing my boys and actually living life again.
Well, that's fantastic. It must be a nice relief and just a change of pace to finish up a show that runs like that. So that must be a nice feeling.
It is.
But anyway, so we're going to start jumping into some news here because I think, at least for me, like we said last week, this period of the year is sometimes a little bit slow for the news cycle. But I think a very key, interesting bit of news came out of Titans camp this week, and I want to start with the Treylon Burks story about supposedly him having asthma that apparently the Titans knew about, but no one else in the rest of the world knew about. I'm calling some shenanigans on this, but I'd love to hear your guys' point first here. And one, do you think it's asthma related? Do you think it's something else? And two, what does this mean for him going forward? Does this mean that this is something he's going to be able to get over, and it just means you're going to be able to get him at some fantastic value in either your rookie drafts or your startup drafts, or is this something that's going to kind of hamper him and compare him to some other receivers in the past recent years who have not really shown up to all the hype that they had? So, Kevin, let's talk about some Treylon Burks a little bit here.
Okay, so as you mentioned, no one outside of Titansville apparently knew anything about this. But there was something known that because he labored through some pre-draft workouts, and there were some red flags that were going up through other teams. And so, and his workouts in up there in Tennessee have not gone well so far. And all of a sudden, he's got asthma. So as you said, I think you got to throw the challenge flag down on that one and to see what's really going on here. Either way, it's not looking that great at this point, and it is another indication to me of why you don't hold your rookie drafts in May or June, right? So this guy's going to have to, if I'm in a dynasty league, this guy, making my rookie picks, he's going to have to show a lot more than he's shown us so far for me to have anything to do with him.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and I agree with you. I'm throwing the challenge flag. I think he's just out of shape.
Right.
I'm comparing him to, it's a little bit different because the draft capital spent on him was a little different, but this is at least starting to feel like the beginning stages of N'Keal Harry here, where he just was not as in shape and physical as you expected him to be. Maybe he gets the news he's getting drafted or he's going to be drafted no matter what. He's going to the NFL, and he takes some time off. He lets himself go a little bit as far as football shape goes. So Chase, where do you stand on Treylon Burks here? And I mean, what do you think this means for him going forward with his value and kind of his future role with the Titans?
He hasn't even had an opportunity to be active for a game yet, though, so I'm not necessarily going to call him N'Keal Harry yet. But
Sure.
I understand why you are. I think psychologists call that projection. But, I maybe feel a little better right now. He was one of the names that I was looking at as a Packer fan. He was one of the names I was looking at hard for the Packers to take in the first round because of his size and all the hype in the draft pregame and where they thought that he was going to go position-wise, draft-wise. Then the Titans stunned everybody by trading AJ. But I don't know if I'm not diving off of him. I'm not going to have him ranked maybe as high as I would have earlier. I think it's definitely cause for concern. We don't want to throw too many unnecessary accusations out there. So I don't know if he wouldn't be the first NFL player with asthma.
Sure. No. Emmitt Smith had it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And Emmitt Smith was okay.
Yeah, it worked out just a little bit for him.
Right. Yeah. But it does make me maybe feel a little better that they got Christian Watson where they did in the draft from a Packers standpoint. You know what I mean? It downgrades him in my eyes, but it might be more like much ado about nothing. We'll wait and see. There were the reports that he was having trouble staying in shape and coming into in shape. Let's hope that he's not that kind of player that, I made it now, and he could sit back and, I got my money and whatever, I don't have to worry about it, because he's got all the talent in the world, and it'd be fun to watch him play down there with Tannehill throwing to him and with Robert Woods across from him and with a running game like Derrick Henry provides. Treylon Burks with his talent could be big. I'm not going to jump off of him completely. I agree with Kevin. This is one of the reasons I hate doing drafts this early in the year. I love mine to be in August and put them off as far as I can. Definitely. So that I can see and that's a psychological thing too on my part. But if you've got Treylon Burks, I would hold him. I would maybe drop him in my rankings a bit if you haven't drafted yet. But wait and see. Depending on what news comes out, he may jump back up there. Hopefully, nobody's really got any drafts scheduled between now and actual preseason, training camp. For that.
I hope not, but there's people who do.
Right, they do. But you want to be able to see the news that comes out when he actually has to go and has to pick it up and put him down. That's where I stand on it. I'm not jumping off him completely, but I'm interested to see where this goes. I would hold him if you got him. If you don't have him yet, I wouldn't. I don't have him quite as far up my board as I did.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, and I think something that it does bring into play here is you mentioned Robert Woods. I think it does give him a little bit of boost in value, at least early on the season. Robert Woods was always someone that I was kind of looking at this season as, if I'm going to have him, I'm going to have him and try to trade him somewhere middle season when I think he's reached his peak before Treylon Burks comes in and does take over.
Yeah.
So, and I think that now just kind of with this news, that just kind of solidifies that plan for me when it comes to Robert Woods, especially in Dynasty, because look, Robert Woods, he's got a bit of a track record with the injuries. He's not old, but with some of these talented younger receivers, there's a good core of younger receivers in the league now from a dynasty standpoint. He's someone that this could be the year to, if he hits his peak somewhere around that 6th, 7th week, maybe you do unload him a week or two early before he catches that injury or before Treylon Burks has a blow up game if he gets himself back in shape. So I am, if I have Robert Woods, that's my plan for him. You're probably not going to be able to get Robert Woods at good enough value to then try to make that your plan. So he's not really someone I'm going to go out of my way to trade for because he's probably still going to be too much of a price, especially with this news. But if I have him, that's my plan. I'm gonna hold him for a little bit. Do either one of you guys have a different view on Robert Woods with this?
Well, first of all, Robert Woods guys have proved that he is in fact healthy.
Yeah,
because he didn't play with I don't know how many games he missed, but he didn't play at all at the postseason.
Correct.
And so he has to prove that he's healthy. So if you've got him in Dynasty, you've got to just hold that and hope that that comes around and he's on the field. And if he is, I've always kind of liked Robert Woods.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Definitely.
So he's a professional receiver, and if he's healthy, that's probably a good plan that you're talking about, Andrew. Just hold him, and he gets off, and he's Robert Woods, and then see what you can get for him later on down the road.
Robert Woods has always been one of those quietly good receivers. Like he doesn't have the star value, the name power. He doesn't necessarily, as dumb as it might sound, he doesn't even have the name power and recognition necessarily of like a Deshaun Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Jackson's been riding off of a couple of long touchdown catches from early in his career for, I don't know, since the 70s, it seems like.
It's a very good point to make, though.
Been quietly productive, quietly good. Like, you could get him for wide receiver 3 or 4 value a couple years ago, and he would return almost wide receiver 1 value. He'd be number 12, number 14, on the year kind of thing. I like Robert Woods when he's healthy. If he proves that he's healthy, like Kevin said, he's the best receiver they have there, especially early in the season, because he's got the experience, independent of all the Treylon Burks asthma talk. If I have him in Dynasty already, like you said, I think it's an interesting strategy that you're talking about, Doc, with if I have him already trying to maybe get somebody to jump on it for name value. I agree with Kevin. Like, you don't want to get a poor return if somebody is worried about his health. But if you can get somebody to jump on that name who's not worried about his health and they give you a good return on investment, go for it. I don't think he's a house to flip. I'm not going out and getting him so that I can then turn him around in week 6. I'm not going that far yet, unless you got nothing to lose and you feel like going all in on the risky strategies this year. But if he's healthy, I like Robert Woods early in the year as their better receiver.
Yeah, that's I think we're in agreement there. Definitely not, like I said, I don't think the value's there to go out and get him and then flip him a few weeks in. So I agree with you there. But yeah, so I think that's just a very interesting look. I've been interested in the Titans situation, offensive situation, since the draft going forward. This only makes me more interested, and I think it's volatile, but at the same time, it could have some pieces in there that could bring you some success this year. I do think overall their offense is going to take a step back. I just think it's not going to be the same as when it had A.J. Brown healthy there and healthy Derrick Henry and all those, technically they still have the same amount of weapons, but they're different style of weapons. And I just don't think Tannehill is going to be good enough to kind of flip it on a dime.
They could be really, really good, or they could tank a little bit.
Exactly.
Injuries and
Derrick Henry himself was injured last year, so
exactly.
You got to take a look and see what they do, in the preseason.
If he's
before
healthy,
you decide anything with Titans.
Yeah.
And speaking of teams that we're watching the preseason, we're gonna go back to Kevin's old Seattle Seahawks here.
Oh no,
Mr. G, early on. Now it's early. It's early in mini camps here. So, like I said, we talked about last week how much stock do you put in OTAs and early summer mini camps. But Geno Smith taking the first team reps early on here is a little interesting to me because, I mean, you would think that we know what Geno Smith is, and you would think this is Drew Lock's second chance. Maybe we don't know what Drew Lock really is yet. Maybe it was the situation, but they want to get a look at Geno Smith early here. Maybe it's to kind of get it out of the way, make sure that they're right that is just a backup and moving back down. But look, this
seems a little backwards.
It does seem a little backwards, but then again, there's not much that Seattle's been doing so far that has made sense to me yet. So, as the Seahawk fan in the room, Kevin, what do you make of Geno Smith taking first team reps?
He's thrilled.
Well, when they made this trade of Russell Wilson, and I saw that they gotten Drew Lock, I was like, there's no way he's anybody's starting quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so apparently even the Seattle Seahawks aren't buying into that because they've got Geno Smith out there taking first team reps. And the thing that you really have to be concerned about if you're a Drew Lock owner or thinking about doing that. It said that he was feeling a little overwhelmed in this mini camp. And so that's not something that you want to hear out of your potential number one quarterback. Even if it's true, you don't want to hear that. And
Especially
part of the
someone who's
problem that
been
he
through a
had
few
in
mini
Denver,
camps.
right? Part of the problem he had in Denver was people were questioning his ability to lead.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why Denver was like, well, say la vie. And to say something like this it's not good. Like I said, even if it's true, I would keep that to myself. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe I would say it to my wife, who knows, and that'd be about it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it to my teammates, my coaches, especially the media. But Pete Carroll himself said Smith has the edge right now. That is not good.
That is
All right.
baffling to me.
It's not good, especially like you said. I'm a Seahawk guy, been that for a long time, and this is not good news.
No wonder why
It's
DK
not
doesn't
good
want to
news.
show up.
So if
And
you're
everyone's like,
thinking,
"Oh, DK will be fine." One thing Drew Lock can do is he can throw it down the field. It's not going to matter if he's not playing.
right, if you're sitting on the sideline, doesn't matter what your arm looks like.
Because Geno Smith cannot throw it down the field.
No.
Yeah.
And while I was looking into this, one of the interesting things that I saw was that it was over in San Francisco. They're talking about maybe cutting Jimmy Garoppolo. And so if that happens, then the Seahawks need to be all in on that. I'm sure that would interest Justin quite a bit if that happened, because he's the 49ers guy. And that just solidifies Baker Mayfield has no place in Seattle.
Yeah.
After all this has happened, he's not going to Seattle.
In Seattle, though, I think they've actually got an open locker right between Geno and Drew for it. They're just waiting.
So it's a black hole in Seattle right now, and you could just see like at the end of Aliens, where you see all the air flowing out, and everybody's grabbing on to try and save themselves, and the next thing you know, you're in space. So this is what I'm looking at when I look at the Seattle quarterback situation.
The Jimmy Garoppolo note that you slid in there ever so slyly was it would be interesting if that happened. That would be very interesting to me because, man, if that were to be the case, I would want all the Noah Fant everywhere. Given Jimmy Garoppolo's history with tight ends, both in New England being developed as a 2 tight end offense system, and then obviously with George Kittle in San Francisco, he is very used to looking at tight end as a number 1 or number 2 option in the receiving game. He's comfortable with that. That would be, that would be interesting. Noah Fant would fly up my boards if that were the case. I don't think it's a terrible thing for Seattle to get Jimmy Garoppolo there, but it looked like you were about to say something, Chase. What did you want to touch on here?
First of all, I think that the question is not necessarily who's starting at quarterback for the Seahawks this season. I think it's who's starting at quarterback for the Seahawks next season. Is it C.J. Stroud or is it Bryce Young? That might be what they're thinking. They are not going to be able to compete right now as is. They are not going to be able to compete with the defending champion Rams, with Arizona, even as dysfunctional as Arizona sometimes can be.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be able to compete with the rest of their division. I think, when you look at Geno Smith is a good guy to have as a backup because he's been a star.
He's a great backup.
He's a backup. He's been able to flip that switch in his head from I'm the quarterback, I'm the man, to I'm the backup quarterback. I may have to be the man.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't necessarily. He wasn't really all that great fantasy wise for anybody. Whether you had him as a quarterback or whether you had one of his receivers, his top receiver I think was Eric Decker in Smith's second year as a starter. Eric Decker was his top receiver from a fantasy scoring standpoint at like wide receiver 27 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Eric Decker was a good football player. He was fantasy relevant. He was fantasy rosterable, but even if you're in a 12-team league, 27 is outside the starting realm.
Well, and a lot of that most likely came after Eric Decker's after the catch stuff because he was an agile guy.
He was a man. But Smith, even with running around and doing whatever else he might be able to do, he's not a particularly strong, like you said, downfield thrower. He doesn't get quite the rush and the yards and the touchdowns that you would want from maybe a running quarterback who can't throw or doesn't throw much. He doesn't offer a lot there. Drew Lock is capable of tossing it down the field, and actually, who knows? It might have been a bad situation in Denver with him. He's still young enough that there might be something there. I don't think you need to close the book on him. I certainly wouldn't if I was Seattle. If the Geno Smith thing as well, we'll continue to draft. We'll continue to develop Drew Lock, and we'll let Geno take it for now because he's the veteran. I don't think that makes any sense. Lock has played, and you are not going to win this year. It doesn't matter who's your quarterback necessarily. Even if Russ was there, you're probably not competing right now in that division the way your roster is constructed. Yeah. They've got questions at running back. It sounds like Carroll's trying to shuffle Chris Carson out the door. Chris Carson says, "I'm not dead yet. And
essentially he's dead. Okay.
Right. But he says not. Rashard Penny, who knows if he's and they got Kenneth Walker, but he's a rookie. They don't necessarily have all that strong an offensive line, although they've tried to do some upgrades. I don't know what they're thinking at the quarterback position. It makes me downgrade DK Metcalf. Again, I'm not bailing on him if I have him. He's too damn good.
Yeah.
If you've got Tyler Lockett, I'm not bailing on him. I'm not running out and getting a Noah Fant right now, but I like Noah Fant as a player. If Noah Fant was in just about any other situation right now, he would be a sleeper pick.
Yes.
He may still be, just because whoever's throwing the ball in Seattle might have to be tossing that thing off pretty quick and short, and that's where Noah Fant will be. So, this is one of the reasons why I was glad we put up with the drama in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers, and I am okay with it because we got him back. I want to hang on, kicking and screaming to Aaron Rodgers until I absolutely have to let go another Hall of Fame quarterback because I've seen the league try to do it.
So last week I was on the corner booth the other day, and someone on there said that they see Seattle. I believe I might be misquoting this, but I'm almost positive they said they see Seattle as a 7-win team, and I went no. I don't see it. I think that's where the line was for the bets. I think that's
worst case scenario. I think that's the worst case scenario. Not in terms of their ceiling. I think it's the worst thing that could happen to the team because it sticks them in the middle of the draft.
I've seen them win as few as 2 games next year in projection. I'm not going to go off the cliff just quite that far.
I'm not one of those guys that wants to see a team tank, and if it was my team, I'm like, every week you want to see your damn team win, but it's winning 7-8 games is just going to tank everything. It tanks their tank if that's what they're doing, because you end up in that middle realm where you can always get a difference maker guy in the draft at that realm, but at quarterback, which is what their big need is right now, you probably can't. It's not that deep a draft next year.
Well, that's why it makes it very interesting. If they do get a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Baker Mayfield, could they hit that 7-win? Yeah, I think then that could be possible. I think their schedule leaves that as a possibility, like open to that possibility. And then they could get away with having a mid-round, first-round draft pick and be able to get
those guys. If you get but I don't think you're getting Garoppolo unless he's cut.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And now that they know that the Seahawks are interested in maybe picking him up, the 49ers may not do that.
Exactly.
That's the reason. That's the reason why Mayfield has not been cut by the Cleveland, because they know Pittsburgh would swoop in and pick him up, and they don't want that either.
Right. I think there's honestly probably a better chance that Mayfield could end up in Seattle just because of the timing of cuts and everything like that. And I believe if it came down to, it's not waivers, if they just cut him, I think Seattle might be willing to jump on that, because now they don't have to pay starting quarterback money for a guy who they know is a starting quarterback more recently than Geno Smith and better than Drew Lock. So
100%.
And if they get Baker, he's young enough that now you don't have to necessarily worry about it. You might draft a developmental quarterback, but you can push that off a year or two, or you still have Drew Lock to develop. But yeah, Garoppolo would be awesome for them. In terms of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's value and Noah Fant's value, I don't know that he'd be great for them in terms of their long-term projected organizational plan.
Sure. See, and this is where I think Drew Lock has already sunk. The fact that one of his biggest knocks was the worry about him being a leader, and then he does already come out and say he's overwhelmed him, and he can't. Like at that point, he came out and lost his teammates right off the bat,
right out the gate.
And that's something. Even if you were to flip a switch right now and try to be that leader right now, it's gonna take probably a few months before the rest of the team actually starts to buy in that, because he may be able to start acting like a leader, but they're not going to believe it. They're going to look at him and say, "You're trying too hard. Like we know you're faking this," because they've already seen, the flaw in that. So he's already lost that locker room right away.
That's right. That's what write it in your journal if you feel that way, and then close it and lock it up. Put it in a safe somewhere, but don't say that publicly for Pete's sake.
Especially as a quarterback. Yep.
Especially as a quarterback. Now, if you're the number 3 tight end, no one's going to care if you're saying that. But if you're the starting quarterback, potentially, don't say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed by anything."
Well, it's almost like he doesn't want the starting job. Almost like he's he's scared to take it. Which, look, that might be a reality, and that's look, it happens. I'm not knocking the guy for being scared. Being scared is all right. So maybe he's scared of the moment. Maybe because of what he's gone through in Denver, he's lost that confidence in him to feel like he can lead and feel like he can be the starting guy for a more storied team like Seattle than Denver. Maybe that might be the case, but he definitely didn't think about what the rest of the people around him are gonna see him as with the way he said it. He could have said it in even different ways that he still would have been able to hold that locker room from a leadership confidence standpoint. I can't think of a different way he could have worded it right now that would have been the case. But to just flat out and say I'm overwhelmed, like that's in that situation, it's not going to come out. He could have followed that up with I'm overwhelmed, but at the same time, I know I can do that. Like he could have just followed that up with something that said that he's working on it and he knows he can do it. He just needs some time, and that could have changed the whole thing.
Yeah, he definitely needs to go to the what do you call it, the thesaurus, whatever that is, and get a different word than overwhelmed.
Yes,
just
that
about any word would have done better in that situation than overwhelmed.
It's so true. And while we're out of here, speaking of overwhelmed, we're gonna jump to our break here because there's one thing we don't want. We don't want your balls to feel overwhelmed.
That's right. We don't want that. Nobody wants that.
So listening closely here. What was that, Chase?
Not in 100-degree heat, right?
Not in 100-degree heat.
Absolutely not. We definitely don't want that here in Texas. We don't want that at all.
Because it can be easy for your balls to feel overwhelmed in that kind of heat. So listen closely here for how Manscaped can help you this summer get the most out of your balls.
Sweaty sack summer is approaching, and it's time for you to prioritize the comfort of your crotch. That's why the kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. I've had the honor of testing out these new boxers, and I can say it's the softest fabric of any underwear. So breathable that it's like gills for your groin. They even trademarked the jewel pouch, so you know it's serious. I think it's time you invest in your family jewels, so let your bulge breathe and get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at Manscaped.com. Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped on the waistband of your underwear. It's almost guaranteed to raise some eyebrows and act like a billboard on the highway to Pleasure Town. This is thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0, the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. This trimmer offers skin-safe technology designed to trim hair on loose skin. Outside of just ball trimming, they're now focusing their efforts on helping out your thigh slappers in other ways with game-changing boxers. These boxer features include the Jewel Pouch, a pouch designed to cradle your boys in their own special space, lined with perforated performance fabric, and keep them well ventilated. Basically, just imagine your balls sipping pina coladas, chilling on a hammock on some tropical beach. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BellyUpFantasy at Manscaped.com. One more time, that's promo code BellyUpFantasy to get 20% off and free shipping. Once the Boxers 2.0 touch your sack, you'll never go back. Sweaty.
Only Dan Maynard can actually put the image of my balls in a hammock sipping a pina colada on the beach very clearly in my mind. He always does a great job with those reads. Look, I don't know how he does it. I don't think I could get through that read without laughing. It would probably take me 50 takes.
It would take more than a few. That's
yeah. But they're great. Manscaped is they're a fantastic product. They are our longest sponsor here on Belly Up, so we are grateful to have them as always. And we are going to jump right back into the sports world here. And I want to touch on something else that's been interesting so far this offseason, and that has been the rise of Travis Etienne in the ADP and in the rankings across the league with the experts, and experts like ourselves, as we like to call ourselves. But Travis Etienne is someone who, if you go back to, I don't even know when we did that show. I'm gonna ride that wave as long as I can, Kevin. But when we did our rankings back months ago, and I had Travis Etienne as my number 10 dynasty running back, I got laughed off the screen. I still believe in Travis Etienne, but now I'm faced with a problem because now he actually is showing out early and often, and he's on the rise. And he's currently, as I bring this up right here, I think when I looked earlier, his dynasty rankings had him at running back 18, and I believe his ADP right now is around running back 23. And if I'm being honest, that's almost the exact range I have him as like my sweet spot to where I will jump all over him, especially in dynasty format, because I do believe in him going forward, because I think the James Robinson situation is too volatile to where even if Etienne doesn't fully take the lead back role this year, I think he is the future of that backfield. Which is sad for James Robinson because he's not a bad running back. I actually love James Robinson, but he'll find his feet somewhere else. But so I like that sweet spot of like that running back 18 to 23. I think he's a back end running back too, at least now with upside of high running back 2 or even back end running back 1 in the future years. But do we think he's going to keep rising right now? Because at what point right now and getting him in either a trade, because he was most likely drafted last year, he's still probably on a team, or if you're in a startup, at what point is his value just too high right now? Because like I said, he's kind of teetering in that sweet spot for me right now, but if he goes as high as like running back 13, that might be a little too rich for my blood to take the risk on maybe James Robinson still sticking around. Chase has got some facial expressions already, so we'll go to him first this time.
No, I wasn't around when you ranked him as high as you did, but ouch. Let's see. He hasn't played it down in the NFL yet. He got hurt right away. He wasn't necessarily the best pick for them when they took him anyway. I think
right.
Who knows what the hell was going on when Urban Meyer was around and what kind of buffoonery was happening behind the scenes, but I think a big reason they took him was they wanted to try and pair him with Trevor Lawrence, try to make him, like more comfortable. Hey, look, here's a teammate of yours. Let's jump into this.
Yep.
When they didn't need that, they had James Robinson. James Robinson was a rare find.
When they made the pick, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, what does this mean for James Robinson? Like, this doesn't – they had so many other needs where they didn't need Etienne at the time.
I don't begrudge them wanting a second running back. The whole league
especially with the way the league is now.
Yeah, that was your first-round pick, though.
But not with another first-round pick.
Yeah, that was a lot.
No need for it. If you want to give him some more weapons, James Robinson can do what he needs to do. Go get him another darn receiver or something, or tight end that actually made some sense at the time. 18 to 23 is not actually a terrible spot for Etienne.
Yeah.
Where I would probably start to it's where I personally would start to consider him. I'm not big on him. I don't think he's the answer, the be all end all. If someone wants him earlier than that, please take him.
Well, that's kind of the
I
point I'm
agree with
making.
you.
Like that 18 to 23, like I agreed. For me, that's the sweet spot for him.
And you know, in a dynasty format, if you've already got your couple of guys, he is still young.
Mm-hmm.
He has all the time in the world to come back from his injury. And you know, yeah, who knows? Maybe he will be. Maybe he will be awesome and outperform what he even did in college. Who knows? But I am not on the Travis Etienne bandwagon this year. I know a lot of people are. I wasn't on it last year. I'm not on it this year. And part of it honestly might be because he's just with the Jaguars, and I don't see them doing excellent this year.
Sure.
And no, you know, I think Trevor Lawrence can still be a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's going to be the next Andrew Luck savior, like they were hoping he would be, I don't think is a given. I think they need more help around him, and I think they need to stabilize the franchise after the Urban Meyer disastrous, nuclear meltdown that happened. So I would be out on Etienne, but at 18 to 23, if I've already got a good starting two in Dynasty, yeah, okay, now maybe I'll jump on it.
Where do you fall with this, Kevin? Has your opinion changed on Etienne over the months?
Well, this might be a situation where maybe drafting right now wouldn't be a bad situation because you can get him in that 18 to 23 spot. And if he keeps moving up, then he's going to move. He's not going to be in that situation. So when you get around to drafting in August, he might be in that top 12, 13 range right there. And I don't know if I'd be willing to make that big of an investment on him. But right now, 18 to 23, I'm all in on him on that. And I have to agree with Chase. I didn't understand what they were doing last year when they drafted him. And then, he got hurt. And here comes James Robinson, because the year before that, James Robinson was everything that you could possibly want in a fantasy running back. Absolutely everything.
League winner pickup.
Yes, he was the lead. I picked him up off the waiver wire earlier that year, and he, brought it home.
Right.
And so you didn't know what was going to happen with James Robinson. Now, okay, so great. Now he's in. He's on my team. We're all good. But then he gets hurt himself. And so we don't know the situation with him coming back from that injury yet. And even if he did come back 100%, they put a first-round pick on Travis Etienne. They're going to get him in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And I was reading here, and I was investigating him, that they were using him in different positions. We've talked about them doing that with Minnesota and a couple other teams.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Put him at wide receiver and stuff like that. And so if they're talking about doing something like that and he feels comfortable with it, that's the key thing. We were talking about earlier about I'm overwhelmed. Well, apparently Travis Etienne is comfortable with what they're doing with him in the mini camp. I like the sound of that word so much more. I am comfortable. So if they're going to put him in a different situation, that really speaks loudly to me to his value. At 18 to 23, he's got tremendous value upside to me right now.
Yeah, so I think we all agree that if there's going to be a time to get Travis Etienne, it's if he stays in that 18 to 23 range, that back end RB2. Sounds like we're all on the same page on there, which makes for terrible entertainment on the show. But for once, there's some consistency in our take.
If he continues to rise up boards, you are not going to get him there. So
exactly, yeah.
So if you're drafting now, which I don't think any of the three of us advocates.
No. I'm not advocating doing that. There, even to get Travis Etienne, no, we're not doing that.
But if you are, for whatever inexplicable reason, drafting now, and you can grab him like that, grab him. But you are not going to get him that way come late July, August, Memorial Day week or Labor Day weekend. You're not going to get him there.
Yep, and I think that's I fully agree here. And one of the last kind of stories I want to get to here is Dalton Schultz is apparently mad about his contract. And look, I find this one interesting mainly because the landscape of the tight end position, the fact that he virtually came out of nowhere over the last 2 seasons and then to finish tight end 5 last year, he's very hyped up right now. If his situation changes, I'm not saying it's going to, I think he's most likely going to still be in Dallas and they're going to figure out a contract here, but it just raises the question, if Dalton Schultz's situation changes, is he that type of athletic tight end where he's going to take those talents to a different team and be the same type of guy, or is he a product of what the Dallas's offense has been the last 2 years? A team where unfortunately the quarterback position has been in flux because of injury, a team where they've gone up and down in the running back room between Elliott and Pollard, either between injuries or inconsistent play. The wide receiver position has in some ways flux as well. To a point, Schultz has been the most consistent, reliable person on that offense. And is that been the product of his success so far? I'm looking at some of the stats he's had. So last year, he ranked third in target quality rating, which is, catchable targets, putting a premium on deep balls. So they look for him deep. He's got like the number 7 ranked air yards. Like he's pretty much top 10 in all your tight end rankings. But do you guys think that was out of necessity for the offense? Do you think even if he stays on the Cowboys this year, do you think that if Dak stays healthy, if Elliott and Pollard are both playing consistently, and if the wide receiver room led by CeeDee Lamb stays healthy, do we see Dalton Schultz? I don't think we're going to see him take a rise necessarily. I think we might have seen his rise as number 5 tight end, but do we see him take a step back? How do you guys feel about everything going on with Dalton Schultz right now? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Well, the thing that concerns me most about Dalton Schultz, we talk about, touchdown regression. He went from 4 touchdowns to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So if he regresses a little bit off of that, and I think that's probably what's going to happen, he's not going to maintain that tight end 5 slot. And there's always a guy that nobody's really looking at in the tight end position, even though it is the biggest wasteland in the history of sports. There's a guy that rises up and takes into the top 10 position.
Yep.
And Dalton Schultz was that guy last year. And there's going to be somebody else that's going to do that this year. If you picked up Dalton Schultz last year off the waiver wire, which is where he was, even in Dynasty, no, I don't believe too many people had him on their team, then that's good for you. And I would certainly keep him there. He's not going anywhere off of Dallas. He's already signed his franchise deal. And so they're not going to do anything with them. They might try and work out some kind of contract, but they don't have to. They didn't do it with Dak Prescott. They put him on the franchise deal and said, deal with it. They did it with him for 2 years straight. And if they'll do that with the quarterback, the tight end's not going to mean a whole lot to them. And I think that on Dallas right now, he is the number 2 receiver after CeeDee Lamb. We don't know what's going to happen with Michael Gallup at this point because he's hurt, and he may not be ready for the start of the season. And so he's the number 2 receiver. He needs to stay right where he is, because if he does, he's going to get his stats and everything like that. So maybe later on he can move on. Mm-hmm. So if you've got Dalton Schultz, keep him. Just like I said, look out for that touchdown regression that might be happening with him.
Yeah, I think the touchdown regression is definitely a massive point for that, and that was definitely a great call. Chase, what about you? Where are you standing on Dalton here?
I like Dalton Schultz as a player.
Yeah.
I think Dalton Schultz benefited greatly from Blake Jarwin getting injured.
Absolutely.
Another great point. Yep.
Absolutely.
It allowed him to actually step up into the featured role. I think they were all set to go tight end by committee, which is always a recipe.
They were. I'm in Dallas. Trust me, they were.
Right. But Jarwin getting injured meant that Dalton Schultz got his opportunity. Now, he wasn't great with it in 2020.
No, he was not.
But
63 catches, you can live with that as your tight end, but that's not great at all.
Situation in 2020 was not great. With a full season of Dak Prescott behind him, he was a good tight end. I don't think he's a top 5 tight end in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he does well in that system. I think he's lucky that he's got a tight end like Dak Prescott and that he's got an offense like Dallas runs. I would hang on to him. I want to use him this year. If I have him, I'm comfortable going into the year with him as a tight end. Dalton, in real life, dude, you mad about your contract?
But he signed it, so I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. He signed it.
Jerry Jones will tell you to die mad about it. He's not going to
he will.
You are not at a premium, league-wide superstar position. If you were a guy that Jerry felt he could market at wide receiver, at running back, at quarterback, at outside rusher, Jerry would do that. So you are playing under the contract you have right now, and it behooves you, my friend, to just play as well as you can this year. Go out, show that last year was not the outlier that it appears to have been. If you can show that last year was not the outlier of your career, now you can chase that big, relative to the tight end market, contracts, and whether it be Dallas or somewhere else. But I think I'm comfortable with him as my tight end on my fantasy team. I'm comfortable with him if I have to redraft. And he's actually not a terrible daily shot even, because that, in their offense, he's going to get some volume. He doesn't have a ton of competition right now in terms of who's on the roster with him.
Yep, because Darwin's not there anymore.
No, exactly. The one guy that would have and was going to, sap off of him. Nobody's afraid of Jeremy Sprinkle.
No.
Not just because of his name.
No.
Dalton Schultz, he'll be a startable tight end this year. If you've got him, keep him. I'm not running out to grab him. But in terms of his situation, Dalton, you've got to show that last year was not the outlier.
I agree.
Nobody's going to be throwing big money at the tight end position. It's not a position where you have to, unfortunately. For you, it's just the position you play, dude. If you were a little fatter, you can play tackle. If you were a little skinnier, you can play wide receiver. Those are money positions. Tight end is a all work, no play, thanks for nothing job. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, and there's something that just came across my Twitter feed. It looked like I was distracted for a second because I'm putting this up here. Because I think we've said some good stuff on Dalton Schultz, but I think this is interesting. I just saw a trade come across my Twitter feed in Dynasty that I'd love to get all of our takes on right here. So this is coming from, this wasn't directly sent to us, but I've now retweeted it. Dave at Toronto FF8. I'm going to put it up here on the screen here in a second, if I could find where I went. There it is. So this is the trade he just sent out. He is sending AJ Brown, David Bell, 2023 fourth rounder, a 2023 second rounder, and another 2023 fourth rounder, as well as a 2024 second rounder from Michael Pittman and Cam Akers. My gut reaction right away is I want that AJ Brown side. That seems like a lot to give up for Pittman in a new situation with Matt Ryan at quarterback and Cam Akers, who is coming off of, showing promise coming off the Achilles, and it should be fine. But this just seems like a lot. What's your guys' initial gut reaction here?
Well, I assume that we're not talking about the David Bell that was the third baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So.
No, the David Bell wide receiver in Cleveland.
Okay, so let's clear that up right out of the gate. So when I first looked at this, I would maybe consider this because Michael Pittman, I like him. Cam Akers, I like him. Mm-hmm. So, but there's just a few too many moving parts for me to really get into this trade right here. If I had Pittman and I had Akers, I would like that a lot. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I'd be willing to, because AJ Brown I think is going to be coming in for a big season. So I would be like, I would consider it for a moment, but I don't think so.
Well, here's the thing, I think you can make the case that AJ Brown and Michael Pittman could easily over the next, 1, 2, 3 seasons finish pretty relatably in the rankings as far
Correct.
as the wide receivers go.
I agree with that 100%.
So for me, that almost kind of cancels out. So now we're looking at David Bell, all those draft picks for Cam Akers.
And Cam Akers is coming off an injury of his own. So
exactly, which, like we said, the Achilles injury, that's something that is medicine has come a long way. He seems like he's going to be okay. But we also know the state of that team as a whole might not be sustainable from a financial standpoint. How long are the Rams going to be the Rams that they are now that has been able to have some limited success in his short time in the league? Like, is Cam Akers your multi-year back going forward? And where are you here, Chase? I know it's a lot to digest on the spot like this, but I just found it very interesting.
Darn, there's a lot. Like you said, there's a ton of moving parts there.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for this one. Like you said, if AJ Brown is the best receiver in Philadelphia, even with Devontae Smith there, AJ Brown is the guy that you want as your primary focus in the pass game. Michael Pittman right now looks like he could be that for the Colts. He's got Matt Ryan thrown to him, which is an upgrade for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that essentially, okay, we can cancel those two out. That's an AJ Brown for Michael Pittman trade. Yeah, that's not the kind of trade you make in fantasy football. Trading one player for another at the same position doesn't make any sense. It's not a change of scenery for him to go to your fantasy team. It's a change of scenery for him to go to a different NFL town. So I'm never a big fan of like the idea of trading a running back for a running back or a wide receiver for a wide receiver straight up, because it just doesn't make any sense in fantasy. But for the terms of this multiple piece trade, yeah, AJ Brown, Michael Pittman cancel each other out. So now you're looking at David Bell, a 3rd round pick, who has opportunity to do more in Cleveland. He's young. He possibly at some point in the future might have Deshaun Watson as a quarterback, playing opposite Amari Cooper, and he might be right now the 2nd best receiver on their roster. But you're also trading a 2nd from next year, a 2nd from the year after, a couple of 4th round picks. You're giving all that up for Cam Akers. I don't know what your running back situation looks like on that AJ Brown giving side.
And there is like that's a
good lot to toss in there for a guy like Kevin said, coming off of an injury. Cam Akers is a good running back. Cam Akers should be the number 1 and unquestioned and not committee-ish running back in Los Angeles if he's healthy this year. And he looked healthy at the end of last. He looked healthy coming off of everything last year. He wasn't great in the playoffs, but he looked healthy. That just seems like an awful lot to give up for Michael Pittman and Cam Akers. I might have held there, but again, I don't know what his running back situation looks like for Brown, Bell, 2 seconds and a couple of 4ths.
Well, and that is the tough part. You know, obviously we don't have the full complete picture here, because maybe he does have a ton of receivers and he's got no running backs. And so in that case, then it changes the landscape in the thought process here. So it is a big thing, and that's.
But even so, you're still getting a receiver. You're getting Michael Pittman. So maybe if you're making this for 2 running backs, then maybe that makes more sense.
Right.
It's a very good point. Maybe maybe it's a situation where the trade partner is just a big AJ Brown fan, and he threw that in there to try to get something back, just to juice up the deal to make it more appealing.
Right.
There could be a lot of things. Maybe he knows you got to know who you're trading with. You got to know what's going to get them.
Right. There's that too.
Take that step.
And Brown right now, for better or worse, Brown has better name recognition than Michael Pittman does.
Yes,
absolutely.
Even among
There's
people,
no question about that.
Even among people who know fantasy football, right now, AJ Brown is like the shinier, flashier jewel out there than Michael Pittman. Whether or not, that's the reality, especially with AJ Brown's change of scenery, is a different question. But right now, AJ Brown has some flashy name value. So, am I capitalizing on that to try and get somebody back that I believe in more? Good, good on both of them if they both feel that that the team is better. I mean,
yes.
I don't think this is a crazily unfair trade. I don't think anybody.
No, I don't think so either.
No, yeah.
I don't know that it's one.
Maybe if you took some of these draft picks away, then we can talk.
If I were the AJ Brown, if I were getting the AJ Brown side of this trade, I think I'd jump on it. I think I wouldn't.
Yes.
I don't
If
think
I
I
was
would
on the
have
other
offered.
side,
I would not have offered the A.J. Brown side of this trade.
Yep. I think
I
that's
would
where
not have either. I
that's
would
where
not
I
have
went
either.
too. But either way, big. I know this was unsolicited, but I hope it's all right. But big shout out to Dave over at Toronto FF8. Give him a follow on Twitter. He puts out Dynasty content, fantasy football content in general. So shout out to you. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk more in the future.
Absolutely.
Hope we didn't offend you too much with our analysis of your trade, but either way.
Well, you know what? Don't put it out in public if you don't expect to get some kind of critique. Don't do it.
True. Very true. Very true. But that's what we do all as, as fantasy football
Right.
analysts. We put stuff out
We're
in
just
public.
giving our honest opinions. We're not sitting there saying, well, dude,
Yep.
What is your malfunction with this? No, we're not saying that.
Yeah, at Toronto.
We're actually saying this is not a bad trade. It's not.
Yes. So
It's not. Yeah, no. It's not it's not an unfair, lopsided trade. It's not one I necessarily would have made, but
Me either.
I've seen much more egregious trades.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Let's not get crazy with that one. Yeah.
Definitely. So, but Dave, give us a shout us out. Maybe we'll have you on the show sometime. We'd love to talk to you
Absolutely.
more. We love
Bring on the
talking to other
power.
people in the fantasy football space. But either way, that does bring us around here to the end of the show this week. So as always, we're going to go around, talk about what everyone's got going on. So Kevin, what do you have going on this week? Where can we find you? What big stories do you have coming out?
Well, you can always find me at Kevin62 WILSEA on Twitter, and also tonight at 8 Eastern, I am the host of the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. So we got that going on. And there will be an article coming out on the fantasy side of things on baseball. You can be pretty sure about that. And even though we're talking about later in the month, I will be a part of the Belly Up basketball draft special that's coming up later on in the month after we get through the finals and everything. And so that's pretty exciting. And so there's a lot going on. So just check out Belly Up and ride along with it.
Fantastic. And Chase, and now that your show is over, you mentioned going to be doing some more writing. What do you have cooking for us coming up in either the next week or coming weeks and months?
Oh, well, there will be a lot of this fueling what I do here in the next week because I'm celebrating being done with that. But I will have a Green Bay Packer season preview for fantasy purposes, and I'll try to touch on Dynasty. I'll try to touch on redraft value in that as well. I also have a Cleveland Browns article coming out, which should be a lot of fun to jump into. The big question there is everything that happens with Deshaun Watson. That will be the center of the Cleveland universe for I think the next several years. And then also I'll be looking at wide receiver. So find me on Belly Up Sports. I'll be taking part in when it comes up, the Belly Up Bowl for charity, benefiting Alex's Lemonade Stand.
That's a great charity. So if you're thinking about getting involved in that, dive in. Don't think about it.
Just check out bellyupfantasysports.com. Get there. Check it out. And if you're willing, if you're wanting to get involved in something that's for a good cause, click on that. Take part in the Belly Up Bowl. But that's what I'll be doing here over the next week or two.
Fantastic. And I just retweeted that out at Real Mr. Mallard for that the Belly Up Bowl. So
I did that this morning as well.
Kevin did too. Yeah. So you can probably find it on most of any of the writers and personalities affiliated with Belly Up. You can probably find it on their Twitters. And then as always, you can find me at Real Mr. Mallard. I am Andrew LeDuc, aka Mr. Mallard. You can also find my golf show, Divots and Pivots, at Divots and Pivots. And it's a big week for the golf show.
Check that out.
Big week for the golf show this week. We'll have our normal show on Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. on Tiki Live, Belly Up TV. But also as well, we will be going live on Saturday from the clubhouse in Middleton, Massachusetts. So if you are in the
I remember you saying that. Yeah, we definitely got to check that out.
Yeah, come drive by, come meet us. We're going to be hanging out, watching the U.S. Open. I'm about to be cut off on time. It's going to be fun. Giveaways from Piper Golf. We love you guys. Have a good week.